is a very powerful video. It's just the continuation of what I was explaining in my last video. And so I'm working through logical functions, right? Logical functions. The last video I was explaining aggregation function, that are sum, the count, the mean, the max, and the but for example, for this we're actually dealing with the logical functions, and logic, it's very important part of formulas, right? And for logic, you want to know, logic actually, I actually believe logic hinges on two elements, right? And the two elements that logic actually um hinges on, which are the two major elements, is true or false, right? True and false, basically. Now, so I'm walking you guys through this. I have my data set here already that we'll just begin to practice. We have our name, we have our score, we have the attendance, we have the assignment submitted, and we have the department, right? So name, score, you can see here. And so now let us walk through this. Now I want to start with if, the if function. And the condition we're using for this if is that we want to know if any of these scores are greater than 50, that means the person pass. If the scores are less than 50, that means the person failed, right? So now let's say we have a new column here. And let me tell you one thing about if makes a decision by checking whether a condition is true or false, right? That means if actually makes a decision. That means if this score is greater than 50 or equals to 50, it should return pass. If it's not up to 50, it should return fail. So it's checking it. If it's true, shey get, return pass. If it's false, return fail. So that's one interesting thing about the if command. So let me just write P and F. P and F. So let me insert to the right, just okay. So P and F, that's pass. Okay, P or F. Let me use or. So that's pass or fail, right? But now I want to use the if command here. So if you write if, see one thing about the if, you say, as I said, you see, if checks whether a condition is met and return one value if to another if false. That means, for if, the first thing is the logical test. What is the logical test? The logical test is that if this score, Ada score, is greater than or equals to 50, that's the logical test. If this Ada score is greater than or equals to 50, what should happen? That's the value if true. We should return what? Pass. And the reason why we put that's the value if true now, that's pass. And this is why I'm quoting it is that if you input letters like in the formulas, Excel will assume it's a number, that's numerical value, and it will return error because this is not a numerical value. If it's a numerical value we are using, we don't need to quote it. You can see we're not quoting 50, right? So otherwise, if the value is false, it should fail. So what are we saying here? We are saying that if B2 is greater than or equals to 50, that means if this Ada score is greater than 50 or equals to 50, that means she passed. And if it's not equals to, or so, that's what failed. And one thing is that if deal with only a single criteria, that means we are dealing with only score as a criteria. So imagine you want to do with score and attendance, then we have to use ifs or another or and also works with that, right? So let us click on enter. You can see this is pass, right? I know I told you that if you double tap that if you double tap this to fill the formula and you perform the same operation, you can see 72 pass, you can see 45 fail, you can see, and you get. So hope you got that. So okay, I want to just insert more columns, and so that let us see. And now we want to measure eligibility. And what is the condition for eligibility? If the score is greater, you can see that and now we're dealing with two conditions now with and, right? And I say one thing about and is that and checks multiple conditions and return true if all of them are true. Let's difference between and or. Please, I want you to pay attention now. And or looks alike, but and return true if all the conditions are true. That means if one of the conditions are not true, it will return false. Now, for example, the condition for this eligibility is that if the score is greater than 50, right? If the score is actually greater than if the score is greater than 50, right? That's greater than equals to 50, and the attendance is greater than equals to what? 75. That means if the score is greater than 50 or equals to 50, but the attendance, shey you get now, is not up to 75, it's still going to be what? Non-eligible. Do you get it? Do you get the idea now? So for it to be eligible, because for this now, we want to know the students that are eligible and the ones that are not eligible. So if the students fulfill one of these conditions, they are not still eligible. They need to fulfill these two conditions for them to be what? Eligible. That's when we use and. But if we want to do it in a way that if they fulfill only one of these two conditions, they should be eligible. That's score and attendance. Then we will use what? Or. Please, are we together now? So we use what? Or. So but now we are dealing with only one. So we are dealing with both. They must meet both criteria to be eligible. And that's, for you to use, this is a conditional statement now. So we still need to wrap it up with if. So if and, because and now we are dealing with multiple criteria, so we are using and. Shey you get? But we're still going to use if, right? Because it's still a conditional statement. So B2, and don't forget the difference between and or. Don't forget that. If B2 is greater than equals to 50, right? C2, can see this C2, that's attendance, is greater than or equals to, that's, I gave the criteria there already, 75, right? So close the bracket. Now, you can see we have entered the logical test, right? So this is the logical test. If, but we're using and, that's if and, right? B2 is greater than equals to 50, C2, so that's the two conditions. So now, eligible. And don't forget, and checks multiple condition. So if you ask yourself that what is now the difference between and ifs? So we'll get to that. But it's very interesting. Don't forget what we did now. This is the value if true, right? This is the value if does not meet the condition. But for it to meet the condition, for it to be eligible, that means these two conditions must be correct. That means score should be greater than 50, attendance should be greater than 75. That's the and for you. If one of them is if one of them defaults, do you get the idea now? it will write non-eligible. Now let's look at this. You can see it's eligible. Why is it eligible? It meets the two conditions, right? So let us say, for example, let us play with this now. Let us make this 40. You see that's going to be non-eligible. Do you understand the logic now? Meanwhile, you know that this one actually meets it. The score met it, but the attendance did not meet it. But now let us, and the same thing, if both of them two are not, you get now. So let us make this 50, and let us make this 90. You can see it's eligible. Why? Because the condition is greater than or equals to 50 for this, and this one is what? Don't forget the year, and this one is what? Greater than or equals to 75. And drag just let us fill the formula down. I can see what we have here. You can see this one is non-eligible, this one is non-eligible. Can you see? Because this one is not meeting the criteria, right? Meanwhile, this one is meeting, right? You can see this one is eligible, both of them. This one is greater than 50, this one is greater than 75. And this just make everything so interesting. Let us use all. You know what I told you about all, right? So instead of if actually checks, sorry, the and actually checks the multiple um condition, right? So let's name this special consideration. Let's just make it special C, right? I want to just know if it's actually a special case or a normal case, right? So let us do so if you know let us just make it like um let's use this condition, right? So if the score is greater than or equals to 80, or attendance is, so you can see that that's the formula is talking about all. That means once it meets one of the criteria, we are cool. Right? Once it meets one, now that's the formula all. It's just working like the name, right? Check multiple condition and return true if at least one condition is true. So if one condition is true, it's going to return true. That's the or formula. So since if one of the conditions are met, we are fine, right? So we want to know if it's actually like a special case or a if it's like a special case or a normal case. So let's just play around with it. So they'll say this one equals to if, don't forget start with if or, right? So we can actually now wrap this into our bracket. If our B2, that's, don't forget that's our score, right? It's greater than 80, right? C2 is greater than or equals to 90. So we are done with the condition for the logical test. Now, value if true. So what should it bring back if the value is true? It should bring back this is a special case. Otherwise, this is normal. Then close the bracket, enter. You can see this is a special case. Why is this a special case? I said for special case, okay, so let's adjust the width. For special case, don't forget the condition. Score is greater than or equals to 80, attendance is greater than or equals to 90. You can see attendance meets 90. This one is greater than, you can see that this one is not greater than 80 or is not equals to 80. But since attendance met the condition, so if as me I make this 80 and I can see it's going to be a normal case. Why? Because none of them met it. But if one can meet it, for example, if this one can be 80 because it's greater than or equals to, this one can be 80, it has met it, then we are fine, right? And if both of them to meet it, it's still cool, right? Nothing changes, right? But at least one And that's the or function for you. At least one. Since one has met it, we are fine. But for the and, it's both. Both of them must meet it for us to actually have true. Do you get the idea now? So, but don't forget the whole idea behind it. So let us talk about the next one, which is very powerful too. Not. Not. Not reverses a result. Not reverses a result. True become false, false become true. I know one thing we use not for is that, for example, if you want to know students that do not submit the assignment, we have to use not. And how did the not work? Not reverses the record, true become. So let us try the not here. This is how the not is going to work here. So we can say equals to if. Don't forget, this must be wrapped with if. If not, guys, it changes false to true to false. Very interesting now. You understand what I'm saying now? D2, that's the assignment submitted. If the assignment submitted equals to yes, that means yes means that they submitted the assignment, right? That means if they submit the assignment, that means people, if they submit the assignment here, right? Follow up. So what do you think will happen now? Okay, there's something wrong with the formula. Okay, let's type it back. If not, then D2 equals to yes. Don't forget, we're quoting the yes. I think that's the mistake we did now. We didn't quote it. It must be the same yes that we have here. It must be the same spelling. Nothing must change. So close the bracket. So follow up, right? So you can see that's it. The mistake. Can you see? Can say so if D2 equals to yes, right? Follow up, okay. So the not function is actually the not function is that we want to check if the assignment is missing. That means if this assignment is yes now, right? That means it's actually okay, right? That means it's not missing. But if it's no, that means we should follow up. Let's drag down. You can see we have to follow up since this one is no, right? We have to follow up. So it's actually we use it for like for example, they said not reverses a result, true become false and false become true. You can see here now. So if not, right? If not, so it's actually trying to tell you that it's working reversely because it's not like you saying if for example, if we say if D2 equals to yes, follow up. Because I want you guys to understand what I'm doing. If I used if, okay, let me try it. If we say if I say if this D2 equals to yes, right? And I said the value if true, follow up, otherwise, yeah, she's going to follow up. Why? Because I'm saying here now that if D2 equals to yes, that's the normal if. Are we together? If I'm saying if D2 equals to yes, follow up, otherwise, so since it's yes, it will show follow up. But now we are dealing with missing items. If this assignment is equals to yes, we don't need to follow up now because they have submitted the assignment. He is the one that is know that we want to follow up. So we need a reverse formula that will not just follow the conditions of if, and that's why we are using if not. So you can see if not. So the if not now, that means if is yes, do come and do okay. If is no, that means if not is, normally for if, it is value if true, value if not true. But once you have put not, it will switch the game. It will now be value if not true, value if true. And that's what not does. A very powerful formula, right? So now let's talk about the last one. I'm going to be creating a special video um for the sum ifs, for the count ifs, and also for the VLOOKUP and index match, right? So I'll be creating a special video, or maybe I'll just do, okay, let me just still rush through the sum if and the count if right after this. But I'm making a special video for the VLOOKUP, um the HLOOKUP, XLOOKUPs, just the lookups and the index match, and also conditional formatting will just be touched in that video, right? So um let's continue, right? So the last one we'll be doing here is the grading, right? The last one that we'll be doing is the grading, and the grading now we'll be using the ifs, right? So we're going to be using the ifs. So ifs is actually to test multiple condition. So we want to grade student that if 80 plus will be a, um people that got 70 79 will be B, and like that, like a normal grading system. So ifs, so you can just press alternate and enter to come to the next row, right? So let us do B2 is greater than or equals to 80, right? So it will be A. Don't forget to quote the value because it's not a number, comma. So B2 is greater than or equals to 70, B, right? So B2 is greater than or equals to 60, C, right? So comma. So B2 is greater than or equals to 50. So we put the, so if B2 is lesser than, yeah, 50, that should be F. And come and close the bracket down here. So basically the summary of this, okay, oh, should be a comma here. right? So I'll say we explain this if, but if you tap this formula down, oh, let's just drag it down. You can see this is the, for this grading, we're just using only the score, but we're dealing with multiple criteria. That means if B2, that's ifs, and don't forget to go down, you use alternate and enter. That's alternate right here. Alternate plus enter. To actually just go to equation. You cannot press enter. If you press enter, it will load the formula. But if you use alternate and enter, um, so for this grading, don't forget if they went down, if B2 is greater than or equals to 80, A, if it's greater than or equals to 70, B, if it's greater than or equals to 60, C, and up to when it's less than 50, F. So in my next video, I'll be explaining the count ifs, sum ifs together with the XLOOKUP and index match. Right. Thank you.